Got a pair of good questions from Ben on my last Q&A about whether or not I fear death, and if I could avoid death, would I? So am I afraid to die, and do I want to live forever? Find out next. Just kidding, find out right now. So the first question, no, I do not fear death as a concept because it is not rational to fear something that is inevitable. And to the second point, no, I wouldn't want to live forever, and I'm kind of amazed that so many people or so many philosophies or so many ideologies want that. But let's think about that first part. Let's think about fearing death. The fear of death is kind of a survival instinct, right? It might not make sense to fear death as an inevitable concept, but it does make sense to fear death in a moment of danger. If you end up in a dangerous situation, it can be fear that motivates you to act and potentially save your own life or others. But we've really evolved past that at this point as humans. For the most part, we don't encounter life or death dangerous situations on a daily basis, and for some of us, we might not encounter one our entire lifetime. So the fear of death is less a question of do I fear death in this particular instance, and more of a question of do I fear death at some point in the general future? There is nothing to be gained about fearing an inevitability. Fearing death is no more rational than fearing tomorrow's sunrise. They both represent an inevitable transition between what we know about today and what we don't know about tomorrow. And perhaps some of you might say, well, yeah, we have some idea of what might happen tomorrow, and we have no idea what, if anything, happens after we die. And I grant that's at least partially true, but I think you're kidding yourself if you know that much about what's going to happen tomorrow. I always hate that question in job interviews or other interviews where they say, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I don't know, in some sort of wildly different, impossible to foresee circumstance, I suppose. The reason I hate that question is because if I look back on myself 5 years ago, I don't know of many truths of my life now that I could have predicted accurately back then. And just like back then, I couldn't have predicted myself at present day. Today, I can't predict myself when I'm on the other side of that transition into death. Another counterpoint people sometimes say is, well, yeah, but it motivates us to stay healthy and all that stuff. Yeah, great, I'm all about living healthy too, but I don't do it out of fear. And I also think you're kidding yourself if you think healthy habits alone will keep you alive, at least with any degree of certainty. You always see those interviews with old people that are like 110 or something, and a reporter asks them, what's the secret to longevity? And they always say something like, well, it was a fifth of vodka and a side of bacon a day. And I always kind of laugh, because never once do they ever say, well, I lived to be 110 because I never once took a risk ever. We all do have some control over our own health, some control over our own long-term fate. But a lot of the time, death is just death, and it could never be foreseen. So as the kids say, YOLO, swag, and such, live for today. Now to the second part, would I want to live forever if I could? My answer to that is no, but I am fascinated with how many religions and how many myths, think the Fountain of Youth, for example, are centered around this idea and this desire of immortality, this desire to live forever. And I don't understand why, because death is the only thing that gives life value. Is there life as we know it without death? You need death to understand and value life. You need black to understand white. You need bad to understand good. You need illness to understand health. You need weakness to understand strength. It is only because we can die and because our time in life is finite that life is valuable. People say time is money because they are both resources of value. So think about your life as a big pile of money, for example. Each day represents $1, let's say. The reason that individual day or that individual dollar matters or has value is because it is part of a finite pile of the resource. If you have $100,000 or 100,000 days in your life pile here in this crappy metaphor, that's what gives the single day or the single dollar value. If your stack of money or your stack of days was infinitely large, literally never ended, each dollar or day in that stack does not matter. Each dollar or day is worth the same as $100 or days or $1,000 or days. And if that's the case, they are all worth nothing. Think about someone you've lost to death, a friend, a family member, anyone. The reason you miss that person, the reason you wish that person was still here is because his or her life was finite. If he or she could come back, or you could meet him or her again in some other world and be together forever, would your togetherness even matter at that point? Once something is infinite and forever, It has very little value. So that's my thought, and I'm sticking with it. I want to hear someone give me a counter argument. I want someone to tell me why immortality, why infinite life would actually be a good thing, or what value life would have if it were infinite. If you want to take a stab at that, please do go ahead, write down in the comments section below, or get at me on Twitter at skag_3. And I want to say thanks to Ben for such an interesting, thoughtful, philosophical question. These are the kind of questions I'm looking for going forward. I appreciate them, and I like to think about them and discuss them with you guys much more than I do topics like, well, my favorite color is blue and my favorite kind of ice cream is chocolate, and if someone made me pick, I would fuck a cat and marry a dog and kill a turtle. So ask me the tough questions. Those are the ones I want. Okay, whatever, I went on way too long. Bye!